Princess Liara stood by the tall windows of her chamber, watching the silver ship grow smaller in the dark sky. Another suitor was leaving, another rejection. She counted in her mind. This was the 47th one. The ship disappeared into the stars, and Liara felt nothing. No regret, no second thoughts. Just the same empty feeling she had after all the others left. "Your Highness," her attendant Kira said softly behind her, "your father wishes to see you." Liara closed her eyes. She knew what was coming. Another argument, another disappointed look from Emperor Thorin, another speech about duty and responsibility and the future of the Valthene Empire. She turned from the window and followed Kira through the crystal halls of the palace. Everything here was beautiful. The walls shimmered with light. The floors reflected the stars above. The Valthene people had built wonders across 100 worlds. They were ancient, powerful, and respected by every species in the galaxy. And Liara was supposed to help keep it that way by marrying someone she did not love. The throne room doors opened before her. Emperor Thoran sat on his seat, looking tired. He was old now, his silver skin duller than it used to be. The weight of ruling an empire had worn him down over the years. "Liara," he said. His voice was not angry. That would have been easier. Instead, he sounded sad. Prince Dravek was a good match. His people control 3 systems. They have the strongest fleet in the Outer Rim. "Yes, father," Liara said quietly. "Then why?" Thoran stood up, his robes flowing around him. "Help me understand. What was wrong with him?" "What is wrong with all of them?" Liara looked at her father and tried to find the words. She had asked herself the same question so many times. Prince Dravek had been handsome by any standard. He was smart, powerful, and kind. On paper, he was perfect. But when she looked into his eyes, there was nothing. No spark, no connection, just cold calculation. He wanted the alliance, not her. He wanted the Empire's support, not her heart. And she could see it so clearly. "He did not want me," Liara finally said. "He wanted what I represent." "Of course he did," Thoran's voice rose. "That is how these things work, daughter. Love comes later if it comes at all. First, there is duty. First, there is the good of our people." "Is that how it was with Mother?" Liara asked. Thorin's expression changed. He looked away. "Your mother was different." "We were different. The galaxy was different then. Was she your first choice? Or did you refuse others before her?" The Emperor did not answer. He walked to his throne and sat down heavily. "I have ruled for 300 cycles, Liara. I have made peace with the Krell. I have negotiated with the Mevari. I have expanded our borders and kept our people safe. But I am old now. And you are my only child. When I am gone, you will need allies. Strong allies. You cannot rule alone." "I know, father." "Then why do you keep saying no?" Liara moved closer to him. "Because every one of them feels wrong. I look at them and I see only ambition, only strategy. They speak pretty words, but their eyes are empty. There is something missing in all of them, and I cannot name what it is. But I feel it. Here." She placed her hand over her heart. "I feel it missing." Thorin studied his daughter's face. "You are looking for something that does not exist. This is reality, Liara. This is how empires survive." "Maybe you are right," Liara said. "Maybe I am looking for something impossible. But until I find it, I will keep saying no." The Emperor sighed. "The Council is losing patience. They whisper that you are spoiled, ungrateful. Some say you are playing games. Let them whisper. I have another suitor coming in 2 weeks, Lord Vexar of the Krell Dominion. He is—" "I know who he is," Liara interrupted. "The Krell are warriors. They value strength and honor. He will stand before me and speak of great battles and glorious conquests, and he will bore me within 5 minutes." "Liara!" I will listen to him, Father. I will be respectful. But I already know what I will say at the end. She met her father's eyes. I am sorry. I wish I could be the daughter you need. But I cannot lie about this. Not even for the Empire. She left before he could respond, walking quickly through the halls until she reached her private garden. It was the one place in the palace where she felt at peace. Trees from a dozen worlds grew here, their leaves every color imaginable. A small fountain bubbled in the center, the water singing a soft song. Liara sat on the stone bench and looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, beyond the hundreds of systems the Valthine controlled, beyond the territories of the Krell and the Mavari and the Ordathians, were smaller species, younger species, people who had just learned to travel the stars. The Valthine barely noticed them. What could primitive species offer to an empire millions of years old? What wisdom could they share? What alliances could they provide? But Liara wondered about them sometimes. She wondered if they saw the galaxy differently, if they felt things more deeply because they had not lived for centuries, if they valued things that older species had forgotten. Her attendant Kira found her an hour later. Your Highness, the council meeting is starting soon. I am not going, Liara said. They will talk about your refusal again. Then let them talk. Liara stood up and brushed off her robes. I am tired, Kira. Tired of being treated like a prize to be won. Tired of princes who see me as a path to power. Tired of being told that what I feel does not matter. Kira hesitated, then spoke carefully. What do you feel, Your Highness? What are you looking for? Liara thought about the question. Someone who sees me, not the princess, not the empire, just me. Someone who looks at me and wants to know what I think, what I dream about, what makes me laugh. Someone who is real. That is a lot to ask, Kira said gently. I know, Liara whispered. Maybe too much. Far across the galaxy, on a small blue planet called Earth, a man named Minho received an unexpected message. He was being sent to the Valthine Empire as part of a diplomatic mission. It was supposed to be simple. Deliver a formal greeting from humanity, show respect to one of the galaxy's great powers. Then come home. He had no idea that his life was about to change, that he was about to meet a princess who had refused every suitor in the galaxy. That he was about to become the answer to a question she had been asking for 15 years. Sometimes the universe has a sense of humor. Sometimes it puts people in the right place at the right time. And sometimes, a simple greeting changes everything. The silver ship carrying Minho lifted off from Earth 3 days later, heading toward a destiny that neither he nor Liara could have imagined. The story was just beginning. Minho's ship looked small next to the massive vessels docked at the Valthine capital station. Human ships were practical, built for function rather than beauty. The Valthine ships looked like works of art, all flowing lines and shimmering surfaces that caught the light of 3 nearby suns. Commander, we are being hailed, his pilot Taehyung said from the front of the bridge. Put them through. A Valthine face appeared on the screen. The being had silver skin and large, dark eyes that seemed to look through Minho rather than at him. Human vessel, you will dock at Bay 47. Do not deviate from the designated path. Do not activate any weapon systems. You will be escorted at all times. Understood, Minho said calmly. We appreciate the hospitality. The Valthine's expression did not change. The screen went dark. Taehyung laughed nervously. They are not happy to see us. Can you blame them? Minho stood up and straightened his gray uniform. To them, we are children playing with toys. They have been crossing the stars for millions of years. We have barely been out here for a century. Still, they could be nicer about it. We are not here to make friends. We are here to deliver a message and go home. But even as Minho said it, he felt a small sting of frustration. Humanity had worked so hard to reach the stars. They had overcome so much, and the older species still treated them like they were nothing. The ship docked smoothly. 2 Valthene guards waited at the airlock, tall and imposing in their ceremonial armor. They looked at Minho the way someone might look at an insect. "Follow," one of them said simply. They walked through hallways that took Minho's breath away. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that showed the stars beyond. The ceiling was so high he could barely see it. Everything was designed to make visitors feel small and unimportant. It was working. "The Imperial Court is gathering," the guard said without looking back. "You will wait until you are called." "I was told I would meet with a junior diplomat," Minho said. "This is just a greeting. We did not expect..." "Plans changed. You will wait with the others." They reached a large antechamber. Several beings from different species stood there, all dressed in elaborate robes and jewelry. They turned to look at Minho in his simple uniform, and he saw the dismissal in their eyes. One of them, a being that looked like it was made of living crystal, made a sound that might have been laughter. "The humans sent someone? How amusing." Minho ignored the comment and found a place to stand by the wall. He had been trained for this. Humanity was new to galactic politics. They had to be humble, patient, and respectful, even when they were being mocked. "I heard the princess rejected another suitor yesterday," a tall being with 4 arms said to another. "That is what, 50 now?" 47, someone else corrected. "I was keeping count. The Emperor must be desperate." "Maybe he will marry her to a human next," the crystal being said, and several others made sounds that were clearly laughter. At least that would be entertaining. Minho kept his face neutral, but inside he felt the familiar burn of being underestimated. This was what humanity dealt with every day in the galaxy, being the joke, being the ones no one took seriously. A door opened, and a Valthene official stepped through. "The court is ready. You will be brought in to witness the presentation, and then you will have your audience." "Presentation?" Minho asked. "Prince Vexar of the Krell Dominion is making his formal suit for Princess Liara's hand. It is considered a great honor to witness such an event." The official's tone suggested it was not an honor for Minho, but rather an inconvenience that he happened to be here. They were led into the throne room, and Minho forgot to breathe for a moment. The space was enormous. The ceiling was a dome that showed the real sky above, stars visible even in the light of day. Hundreds of Valthene nobles stood in perfect formation on either side of a long walkway that led to 2 thrones. On one throne sat Emperor Thorin, looking ancient and powerful. On the other sat a female Valthene who had to be Princess Liara. She was beautiful, but it was not her appearance that caught Minho's attention. It was the way she held herself, perfectly still, perfectly composed, but her eyes were distant, like she was somewhere else entirely. Prince Vexar stood before the thrones. He was a Krell, which meant he was built like a warrior, tall, muscular, with dark red skin and sharp features. His voice boomed across the throne room. "Emperor Thoran, Princess Liara, I come before you with great respect and admiration. The Krell Dominion has long honored the Valthene Empire. Our people share values of strength and honor. Together we would be unstoppable." Liara said nothing. Her expression did not change. Vexar continued, listing his accomplishments, his family's power, the benefits of an alliance between their peoples. He spoke for 10 minutes, and every word sounded rehearsed, practiced, empty. Minho watched Princess Liara's face. He saw the exact moment she decided to refuse. It was subtle, just a small change in her eyes. But he recognized it because he had seen that look before, in negotiations, in meetings. It was the look of someone who had already made up their mind and was just waiting for the polite moment to say no. He almost felt sorry for Prince Vexar. The Krell clearly believed he had a chance. He probably thought his speech was impressive. But Liara had stopped listening minutes ago. The official who had brought Minho in gestured for him to move to the side of the room. "Stand there quietly. When the prince finishes, you will be called." Minho nodded and did as he was told. He found a spot near a pillar and waited. The throne room was so large that he felt like he had disappeared into the background. No one was paying attention to the human in the simple gray uniform. Except someone was. Princess Liara's eyes moved from Prince Vexar and found Minho standing by the pillar. For a moment, their eyes met across the vast space of the throne room. Minho saw something in her expression change. The distance in her eyes was replaced by something else: surprise, curiosity, recognition of some kind that did not make sense. Liara tilted her head slightly, studying him. She was supposed to be listening to Prince Vexar's proposal, but her attention was completely on the human stranger who was not supposed to be there. Minho felt uncomfortable under her gaze. Had he done something wrong? Was he standing in the wrong place? He glanced at the official who had brought him in, but the Valthine was not paying attention. When Minho looked back, Liara was still watching him, and now there was something else in her eyes. Hope, maybe. Or possibility. He did not understand it at all. Prince Vexar finished his speech with a flourish. "And so, Princess Liara, I ask for your hand in union, that our peoples may build a great future together." The throne room fell silent. Everyone waited for the princess's response. But Liara did not look at Prince Vexar. She stood up slowly, her eyes still locked on Minho. The entire court seemed confused. This was not how these ceremonies went. She stepped down from the throne platform. 1 step, 2 steps. Walking toward the human by the pillar instead of the Krell prince in front of her. Emperor Thorin leaned forward. "Liara?" She ignored him. Ignored the hundreds of nobles watching. Ignored Prince Vexar's expression of growing confusion and anger. She walked across the throne room with purpose, her silver robes trailing behind her. Minho's heart started beating faster. What was happening? Why was she coming toward him? Had he broken some rule? He looked around desperately, but no one seemed willing to help him understand. Liara stopped 3 feet away from him. Up close, he could see that her eyes were violet, and they were studying him with an intensity that made him nervous. "You," she said, her voice clear and strong. "What is your name?" "Commander Minho of Earth, Your Highness." He bowed the way he had been taught. "I am here to deliver a diplomatic greeting from humanity. I did not mean to interrupt this ceremony. I apologize if I—" "Do you come to seek my hand?" she asked. The throne room erupted in whispers. Minho felt his face go hot. "No, Your Highness. I am just a messenger. I did not even know you were— I know who you are. But I did not come here for anything like that. I am nobody important. Just a commander from Earth." Liara smiled, and Minho saw something break through in her expression. Relief. Joy. "Then I ask you now, would you consider it?" Behind them, Prince Vexar roared in outrage. Emperor Thorin stood up from his throne. The court officials started shouting over each other. But Liara did not look away from Minho's face. He should have said no, should have apologized and backed away, should have let this moment pass and gone back to his simple mission. But something in her eyes stopped him. She was not playing a game. She was not being cruel. She was asking him a real question, and she desperately wanted him to give her a real answer. "Your Highness," Minho said carefully, "I think there has been some mistake." "Yes or no?" Liara pressed. Minho looked at her, really looked at her, past the silver skin and violet eyes, past the title and the crown, and he saw a person who had been waiting for something, someone, that felt right. He did not understand why she was asking him, but he understood that she needed an honest answer. Against all logic and common sense, he said, "Yes." The word hung in the air like a bell that had been struck. Liara closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, tears were shining there. "Yes," she whispered back. And Minho realized that somehow, without meaning to, without planning to, he had just changed his entire life. Prince Vexar's roar of fury echoed off the crystal walls. "This is an insult! I came here in good faith, and you mock me with this human?" Emperor Thoran descended from his throne, his face a mixture of shock and anger. "Liara, what are you doing? This is madness!" The nobles surged forward, their voices rising in confusion and outrage. Minho stood frozen, suddenly aware that every powerful being in the room was staring at him with expressions ranging from disbelief to rage. "Liara," the Emperor said, his voice strained with the effort of staying calm. "Step away from the human, now." "No, father." Liara's voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise. She moved closer to Minho, as if protecting him from the crowd. "I have made my choice." "You do not know what you are saying. You have spent 47 cycles rejecting worthy suitors, and now you accept a human you met 30 seconds ago. This is not choice. This is insanity." A tall Valthine woman in elaborate robes pushed forward. Minho recognized her as one of the council members. "Your Highness, the human must have done something to you, used some technology or chemical. This is not natural." "I agree," another council member said. "No one changes their mind so quickly without influence. The human must be detained and investigated." Minho found his voice. "I have not done anything, I swear. I did not even know who she was until a few minutes ago." "Convenient," Prince Vexar growled. "The human plays innocent while stealing what should be mine." "I am not stealing anything," Minho said, feeling panic rise in his chest. "Your Highness, please, tell them this is a mistake. I will leave right now. I will go back to Earth and never return." Liara turned to look at him, and he saw fear in her eyes. Not fear of the crowd, but fear that he would actually leave. "Do you want to leave?" Minho opened his mouth, then closed it. He should say yes. He should run from this room and never look back. But that look in her eyes stopped him. I do not know what is happening, but I said yes, and I meant it." A small smile crossed Liara's face. "Then I meant it too." Emperor Thoran raised his hands for silence. The room gradually quieted, though angry murmurs continued. "Commander Minho of Earth, you will be taken to secure chambers. For your protection," he added, though it was clear that was not the only reason. "You will remain there while we investigate this situation." "Father," Liara started. "Enough!" Thoran's voice cracked like thunder. "You have embarrassed this empire in front of representatives from a dozen species. You have insulted Prince Vexar and the Krell Dominion. And you have made a choice that could have consequences you cannot imagine. So you will be silent, and you will go to your chambers, and you will think about what you have done." Liara looked like she wanted to argue, but she only nodded. "As you wish, father. But my answer will not change." Guards surrounded Minho. They were not rough, but they were firm. He was led out of the throne room through a side door, away from the shocked nobles and the furious Prince Vexar. They took him to a room that looked like a luxury hotel suite. Beautiful furniture, a view of the stars, everything he could need. But the door locked behind him with a sound that made it clear he was a prisoner. Minho sat on the edge of the bed and put his head in his hands. What had he done? He was supposed to deliver a simple greeting and go home. Instead, he had somehow become involved in an imperial scandal that could cause a war. Earth would be furious. The Valthine would investigate him. And Princess Liara... What was she thinking? Why did she choose him? A screen on the wall lit up, and Tae-hyung's worried face appeared. "Commander, what happened? The Valthine are not letting us leave the ship. They say you are being detained for investigation. I know. I am sorry, Tae-hyung. This is my fault. What did you do? Minho laughed, a sound with no humor in it. I do not even know. I stood in a room, I answered a question, and now the entire empire thinks I am some kind of criminal. Earth Command is trying to contact the Emperor, but they are not getting through. Sir, they are talking about sending a rescue mission. No, Minho said quickly. That would make things worse. Tell them to wait. Let the Valthine do their investigation. They will find nothing, because I did nothing wrong. Are you sure about that? Tae-hyung asked carefully. Because from what I heard, you agreed to marry an alien princess you just met. Minho groaned. I did not mean... She asked me a question, and I gave an honest answer. I did not think she was serious. She seemed pretty serious to me. Before Minho could respond, the screen went dark. A Valthine official appeared at the door. Commander, you will come with me. They led him to a medical facility where he was subjected to scan after scan. They looked for technology implants, chemical agents, genetic modifications, anything that might explain what happened in the throne room. Every test came back negative. This is impossible, the head scientist muttered, looking at the results for the third time. There is nothing unusual about him. He is completely ordinary. Scan him again, a council member ordered. We have scanned him 6 times. There is nothing there. Then we are missing something. No one affects the princess that way without using some kind of influence. They moved on to psychological testing. Minho answered hours of questions about his background, his training, his reasons for coming to Valthine space. A telepath from the Mavari species tried to read his thoughts, but found nothing suspicious. He is telling the truth, the Mavari said, sounding frustrated. He is as confused as we are. It was late into the night cycle when they finally let Minho return to his room. He collapsed onto the bed, exhausted and still confused. In one day, his life had gone from simple and predictable to completely insane. A soft chime at the door made him sit up. A guard entered, followed by Princess Liara. Your Highness should not be here, the guard said nervously. Leave us, Liara ordered. The Emperor said, I am still a princess of this empire. Leave us. The guard hesitated, then bowed and stepped outside. The door remained open, and Minho could see 2 more guards in the hallway, but at least he and Liara could talk. She moved to the window and looked out at the stars. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. I am sorry, Liara finally said. I did not mean to cause you trouble. Why did you do it? Minho asked. You do not know me. I am no one important. Why would you choose me? Liara turned to face him. In the soft light of the room, she looked younger, more vulnerable. Do you believe in feelings you cannot explain? I suppose. For 15 cycles, I have met suitors from every corner of the galaxy. Powerful people, smart people, people who could offer my empire everything. And every single one of them felt wrong. She wrapped her arms around herself. I could not explain why. I just knew, the moment I looked at them, that they were not seeing me. They were seeing a princess, a prize, a path to power. I do not understand what that has to do with me. When I looked at you today, I felt something different. Liara moved closer. You were not supposed to be there. You were not trying to impress anyone. You were just standing by that pillar, looking uncomfortable and out of place. And when our eyes met, I saw someone who was real. Real? Minho repeated. Everyone else in this empire is performing all the time, saying the right words, playing the right games. But you were just you, honest, uncertain, human. She smiled at the last word. I know how strange this sounds. I know you think I am crazy. Maybe I am. But I have been waiting for 15 years to feel what I felt today, and I refuse to let it go just because it does not make sense. Minho studied her face. You realize I could be a terrible person. You do not know anything about me. Then tell me. Liara sat down in the chair across from him. Tell me who you are. Not Commander Minho of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. Just Minho. So he did. He talked about growing up on Earth, about the struggles humanity faced to reach the stars. He talked about his family, his training, his dreams. And Liara listened, really listened, in a way that made him feel like every word mattered. When he finished, Liara told him about her life, about the weight of being the only heir to an ancient empire, about the loneliness of being surrounded by people who wanted something from her, about how she had started to believe she would never find someone who just wanted to know her. Do you know what every other species in the galaxy has in common? Liara asked. They evolved with advantages. The Mevari are telepathic. The Ordathians live for thousands of years. The Krell are born warriors. They all carry this confidence, this certainty that they deserve their place in the universe because they are naturally superior. And humans? Minho asked. Humans are different. Your people have no natural advantages. You are weak compared to the Krell, short-lived compared to the Ordathians. You cannot read minds like the Mevari, but you survived anyway. You reached the stars anyway. You did it through adaptation and creativity and stubborn refusal to give up. She leaned forward. You choose to be better every single day. You are not born for greatness. You fight for it. Minho felt his throat tighten. No one had ever described humanity that way before. Usually, they focused on everything humans lacked. That is what I sensed in you today, Liara continued. That is what was missing in everyone else. They were born special. You had to become it. And that makes all the difference. The guard knocked on the door. Your Highness, the Emperor is asking for you. Liara stood reluctantly. I have to go. But Minho, I meant what I said today. My answer is yes, and nothing they find in their tests will change that. After she left, Minho lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling. His life had changed completely in one day. And somehow, despite the chaos and confusion and political nightmare he had walked into, he felt something he had not expected. Hope. 3 days passed. 3 days of tests, questions, and scans that found nothing unusual about Minho. The Valthene scientists were becoming frustrated. The Council was growing impatient, and Earth's government was sending increasingly angry messages demanding answers. Minho stood in front of a panel of 5 council members, feeling like he was on trial. In a way, he was. Commander Minho, Council Leader Orath said, her voice cold and formal. We have found no evidence of technological or chemical influence. The telepaths report that your thoughts are genuine. The doctors say you are in normal health. And yet, we are expected to believe that Princess Liara chose you, a human she had never met before, over dozens of suitable matches from established species. I cannot explain it, Council Leader. I can only tell you the truth. I did nothing to influence her. Perhaps not consciously, another council member suggested. Human pheromones are different from ours. Perhaps there is some biological reaction we do not understand yet. A Mevari scientist in the corner shook his head. We tested for that. There is no chemical attraction beyond what would be normal for any two compatible beings. If anything, the biological connection should be weaker because of how different their species are. Orath leaned back in her chair. Then we are left with the impossible. That Princess Liara, who has refused every worthy suitor for 15 cycles, has genuinely chosen a human based on nothing more than a moment of eye contact. I know how it sounds, Minho said quietly. I am still trying to understand it myself. Do you love her? A council member asked suddenly. Minho blinked. I have known her for 3 days. That is not an answer. I do not know her well enough to love her yet. But I like her, I respect her, and I think, given time, I could love her very much. How convenient, Orath said dryly. A nobody from a primitive species suddenly has the chance to become prince consort of the Valthine Empire. Surely you can see why we are suspicious. I did not ask for this. Minho's frustration finally broke through. I came here to deliver a message. That is all. I was supposed to spend 10 minutes in a room with a junior diplomat, shake hands, and go home. Instead, I am locked in a room, being accused of crimes I did not commit, while my ship sits outside unable to leave. I have not asked for power or status or anything else. I just answered a question honestly when Princess Liara asked me. And that is the problem, Orath said. That honesty should not have been enough. It does not make sense. Maybe it does not need to make sense to you, a new voice said. Everyone turned. Princess Liara stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 guards who looked uncomfortable, trying to stop her. Your Highness, Orath said, standing quickly, this is a closed council investigation. Into my personal choices. I think that gives me the right to be here. Liara walked into the room with the confidence of someone who had been born to rule. You have tested Commander Minho for 3 days. You have found nothing. Because there is nothing to find. Princess, we are trying to protect you. From what? From making my own decisions? Liara's eyes flashed with anger. I have listened to your advice for 15 cycles. I have met every suitor you recommended. I have been patient and dutiful and respectful, and I have said no to all of them because they were wrong. Now I have finally said yes to someone and you treat it like a crime. Your Highness, be reasonable, another council member pleaded. This human is from a species we barely know. His people have been in space for less than 100 cycles. There are political complications to consider, trade agreements, military alliances. The Krell Dominion is furious. Prince Vexar has threatened to withdraw his people's support. Let him withdraw it, Liara said coldly. I would rather have an honest enemy than a false friend. Orath sighed. Princess, your father is worried about you. We all are. This behavior is so unlike you. No, it is not. Liara moved to stand beside Minho, and he felt a strange sense of comfort from her presence. This is exactly like me. I have always known what I wanted. I have always trusted my instincts. The only thing that is different now is that I have finally found something worth fighting for. She looked at Minho, and he saw that determination in her eyes again, that certainty that had shocked him 3 days ago. You want to know why I chose him? Liara asked the council. I will tell you. Every suitor who came before him spent hours telling me about their achievements, their power, their importance. They talked about themselves like they were reciting accomplishments. Commander Minho stood in that throne room looking terrified and confused, and when I asked him a question, he told me he was nobody important. Do you understand? He did not try to impress me. He did not lie or exaggerate. He just told the truth. That is a very small reason to choose someone, Orath said. Is it? I have lived my entire life surrounded by people who perform, who calculate every word and gesture, who see me as a means to an end. And then I look at this human, and I see someone who does not know how to be anything except honest. That is not a small thing. That is everything. The council members exchanged glances. Finally, Orath spoke. Even if we accept this, there are practical concerns. The Krell are angry. Other species are watching. If we allow this union, it will send a message that humanity is equal to the elder species. Many will not accept that. Then they will have to learn, Liara said simply. Your Highness, I am not changing my mind. You can investigate Commander Minho for another 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. You will find nothing because there is nothing to find. At some point, you will have to accept that I made a choice based on what I felt, not what made political sense. Minho found his voice. Council Leader Orath, I have a suggestion. Everyone looked at him in surprise. What if Princess Liara and I spend time together, not as prisoner and princess, but as two people getting to know each other? Give us a month. Let us talk, spend time together, learn about each other's cultures. If at the end of that time she still wants this, then you will know it is real. And if she changes her mind? Orath asked. Then I will leave peacefully, and we will all pretend this never happened. Liara started to protest, but Minho held up a hand. Your Highness, they need to see that this is not some spell or trick. A month is not much time in the life of an empire, but it might be enough to prove we are sincere. Orath considered this. A month of supervised time together, with guards present, and you, Commander, will remain in secure quarters when not with the princess. Agreed. And at the end of the month, if Princess Liara still insists on this union, the Council will accept it? Orath hesitated. We will bring the matter before Emperor Thoran, but I will recommend acceptance if you both still feel the same way. It was not a perfect solution, but it was something. Minho saw Liara relax slightly beside him. Thank you, Council Leader, Liara said. After the meeting ended, Liara walked with Minho back to his quarters. The guard stayed a respectful distance behind them. You did not have to do that, Liara said quietly. Do what? Give them a month. Risk that I might change my mind. Minho smiled. Will you change your mind? No. Then I have nothing to worry about. He paused at his door. But Liara, I want you to be sure, really sure, not because of some feeling you had in a throne room, but because you know me, because we have talked enough to understand each other. You want me to have doubts, Liara said, sounding amused. I want you to have certainty, real certainty, the kind that comes from time and experience, not from a moment of eye contact. Liara studied his face for a long moment. This is why I chose you. Any other suitor would have rushed the union, afraid I would change my mind. But you are giving me a chance to walk away. Of course I am. This has to be your choice, Liara. Really your choice. Not something you feel pressured into because you made a public declaration. She smiled, and it was warm and genuine. I already made my choice, Minho, but I will spend the next month proving it to both of us. And to them. Over the following days, Minho and Liara met every afternoon in the palace gardens. They talked about everything. Minho told her about Earth's history, the wars and struggles, and slow climb to the stars. He talked about art and music and philosophy. Liara shared the history of the Valthene people, their rise to power, the beauty and burden of being an ancient species. She told him about growing up in the palace, about the loneliness that came with being royalty. They discovered they both loved music, though their tastes were completely different. Liara introduced Minho to Valthene symphonies that could last for days. Minho showed her human songs that were only 3 minutes long but could make you cry. They argued about philosophy. Liara believed in the wisdom of age and experience. Minho argued that fresh perspectives were just as valuable. Neither convinced the other, but they both enjoyed the debate. Slowly, day by day, something real began to form between them. The initial spark that had drawn Liara to Minho was still there, but now it was being built on actual knowledge of each other. On the 20th day, while they were walking through the gardens, Liara said, "Tell me about your family." Minho smiled. My mother is a teacher. My father is an engineer. I have one brother, Hyun, who is much smarter than me. He works in medical research. They must be proud of you. I think they are mostly confused right now. I sent them a message explaining what happened, but I am not sure they believe me. When this is over, I would like to meet them. Minho stopped walking. Liara, you are a princess. They live in a small apartment in Seoul. They are not prepared for... I want to meet the people who made you who you are, Liara said firmly. If we are going to do this, I want to know everything about your life. And Minho realized in that moment that she was serious. She was not just accepting him as a person, she was accepting his entire world. The month passed quickly, too quickly, and at the end of it, when Council Leader Orath asked them both if they were certain, they answered together. Yes. The announcement was made publicly. Princess Liara of the Valthene Empire would wed Commander Minho of Earth. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Most species reacted with shock, some with amusement, a few with genuine happiness. But one species reacted with rage. Prince Vexar of the Krell Dominion sat in his war room, staring at the holographic news broadcast. His advisors stood around him nervously, waiting for the explosion they knew was coming. A human, Vexar said quietly. Too quietly. She refused me for a human. My prince, one advisor ventured carefully. Perhaps this is not about you. Perhaps the princess is simply, what? Insane? Under some spell we cannot detect? Vexar stood up, his massive frame towering over everyone in the room. I am a prince of the Krell Dominion. My family has ruled for 10,000 cycles. I command fleets. I have won battles against enemies the Valthene would not dare to face. And she chose a human who has been in space for less time than it takes me to grow my morning meal. The investigations found nothing wrong with the human, another advisor said. He appears to be genuine. Then she is a fool! Vexar slammed his fist on the table, cracking the surface. And I was a fool for believing she was worthy of my attention. An old Krell warrior in the corner cleared his throat. My prince, there is still a way. Vexar turned to him. Speak. The right of contest. It is an ancient Valthene law, older than the current dynasty. Any rejected suitor may invoke it to challenge the chosen one. If your challenge is accepted and you win, the princess must reconsider her choice. And if I lose, then you must accept her decision and never return to Valthene space. Vexar smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. What manner of contest would I choose? Anything you wish. The Valthene honor all forms of competition, combat, strategy, even intellectual debate. The choice is yours. Strategy, Vexar said immediately. The Valthene War simulation. The same system they use to train their military commanders. Let us see if this human can lead fleets as well as he can steal princesses. The formal challenge was delivered to the Valthene Empire the next day. Emperor Thoran read it with a heavy heart. He could not refuse. The right of contest was sacred tradition, written into Valthene law thousands of years ago. He called Minho to his private chamber. Liara insisted on coming too. Prince Vexar has invoked the right of contest, Thoran said, handing Minho the formal document. He challenges you to a war simulation. You will each command virtual fleets in the Valthene tactical system. The objective is to capture the other's home system. The simulation will be broadcast across the galaxy. Millions will watch. Minho read the challenge, his face growing pale. I am not a military commander. I am a diplomat. I have basic tactical training, but nothing like what Prince Vexar has. I know, Thoran said grimly, which is why you have the right to refuse. If you do, you must leave Valthene space and never return, but you will leave with honor, and no shame will attach to your name. Father, this is not fair, Liara protested. Vexar is one of the finest military minds in the Krell Dominion. He has been studying warfare since he was a child. This is not a test. It is an execution. Nevertheless, it is his right. Minho set down the document. When is the contest? In 1 week. That gives you time to prepare, or time to say goodbye. Thoran looked at him with something almost like sympathy. I do not want to see you humiliated, Commander. You seem like a decent man. But if you accept this challenge, that is what will happen. Vexar will destroy you in that simulation, and the whole galaxy will watch him do it. What happens if I win? Minho asked. Thoran blinked. You will not win. But if I do, then Vexar must accept Liara's choice and leave. The challenge will be satisfied, and your union will proceed with no further contest. Minho looked at Liara. She was watching him with worry in her eyes, but also trust. She believed in him, even if no one else did. I accept the challenge, Minho said. Minho, no, Liara said immediately. You do not have to do this. We can find another way. There is no other way. If I refuse, I leave. If I leave, we are finished. I am not ready to accept that. He turned back to Thoran. I will face Prince Vexar in 1 week. The news spread quickly. Earth's government immediately sent their best military strategists to help. Admiral Yuna of the Terran fleet arrived with a team of tactical experts. They set up a war room in Minho's quarters and began emergency training. You need to understand something, Admiral Yuna said bluntly. You are going to lose. The question is how badly. Our goal is to make sure you do not get completely embarrassed. That is encouraging, Minho said dryly. I am being realistic. The Krell have been waging war for 10,000 years. Prince Vexar has access to strategies and tactics that humanity is still learning. You have 1 week to learn what he has known his entire life. They spent the first 2 days studying Krell military doctrine. It was impressive and terrifying. The Krell believed in overwhelming force applied at critical points. Their strategies were aggressive, decisive, and brutal. They do not do subtle, one of the tactical experts explained. They identify the enemy's strongest point and smash it. Once the enemy's strength is broken, the rest collapses. Minho studied the simulations they ran. Every time the Krell strategy won, it was elegant in its directness. Find the strongest enemy formation. Hit it with everything you have. Move to the next target. Repeat until victory. On the 3rd day, Liara came to visit. The strategists left them alone in the war room, surrounded by holographic displays of battle scenarios. You have been avoiding me, she said. I have been studying. There is a difference. Minho, look at me. She waited until he turned away from the displays. You cannot beat Vexar by trying to be like him. He is better at being Krell than you will ever be. I know, but I have to try. No, you have to think differently. What makes humans special? You told me yourself. Your people survive through adaptation and creativity, through being unpredictable. Minho rubbed his eyes tiredly. I cannot be unpredictable in a military simulation. There are rules. Tactics that work and tactics that do not. If I ignore the proven strategies, I will just lose faster. What if that is the point? Liara said. Every species in the galaxy fights according to their nature. The Krell use overwhelming force. The Mivari rely on perfect information. The Ordathians plan everything precisely. What do humans do? Minho thought about Earth's history, about the wars and conflicts that shaped humanity. We adapt. We change tactics based on what the enemy expects. He paused. We improvise. Exactly. Vexar will expect you to follow standard doctrine. He will have prepared counters for every recognized strategy. But what if you do things that are not in the doctrine? Things that seem illogical or wasteful? I would lose. Maybe. Or maybe you would confuse him long enough to find an opening. Liara moved closer. I am not a military expert, but I know this. You cannot beat Vexar at his own game. You have to make him play yours. After she left, Minho sat alone in the war room thinking. Admiral Yuna and her team were trying to teach him to fight like a proper commander. But Liara was right. He could never be as good as Vexar at conventional warfare. But what if he was not trying to win conventionally? He pulled up the simulation parameters, studied the rules, looked at the victory conditions, and slowly, an idea began to form. It was risky, possibly insane. The kind of strategy that would get him laughed out of any military academy. But it was human. The next morning, Minho told Admiral Yuna to stop the training. What? Commander, we still have 3 days. You need every hour you can get. I am not going to fight the way you are teaching me. Yuna stared at him. Excuse me? I appreciate everything you have done. Truly. But I cannot beat Vexar by following standard tactics, so I am going to do something different. Different how? I am not sure yet, but it involves ignoring most of what you have taught me. Yuna looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Minho's expression stopped her. You are serious. Completely. This is suicide. Maybe, but it is my suicide to commit. Minho smiled slightly. Besides, everyone already expects me to lose. At least this way, I will lose doing something interesting. Yuna shook her head but did not push further. Good luck, Commander. You are going to need it. Minho spent the final 3 days alone with the simulation system. He did not practice conventional battles. Instead, he experimented. He tried tactics that made no sense. He broke formations. He wasted resources intentionally. He did everything that every military manual said not to do. And slowly he began to see patterns, weaknesses in conventional thinking, assumptions that commanders made because they had always worked before. On the night before the contest, Liara came to his quarters. She found him sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. Are you ready? She asked. No. Minho said honestly, but I have a plan. It is probably stupid. It will almost certainly fail. But it is mine. Liara sat beside him. Then that is enough. What if I lose? Then we will find another way. There might not be another way. Liara took his hand. Minho, I chose you. Not because I thought you were the strongest or the smartest or the best warrior. I chose you because you are real, because you think differently than anyone I have ever met. Win or lose tomorrow, that does not change. But if I lose, I have to leave. Then I will find a way to come with you. Minho looked at her in shock. You cannot leave your people. Watch me. Liara's eyes were fierce. I have spent my whole life doing what was expected, choosing duty over happiness. If they force you to leave because you could not win an unfair challenge, then I will choose differently. I will choose you. Minho felt his throat tighten. I am going to try my best tomorrow. For you, for us, for humanity. But mostly, I am going to try to show Vexar something he has never seen before. What is that? Minho smiled. A human who refuses to fight fair. The contest would begin at dawn. The arena was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Holographic displays would broadcast the contest to billions more watching from their home worlds. This was the biggest event in recent memory. A human challenging a Krell prince for the hand of a Valthene princess. It sounded like a story from ancient times. Minho walked into the arena wearing his simple gray uniform. He looked small and ordinary compared to Prince Vexar, who wore elaborate Krell battle armor and carried himself like a conqueror. Emperor Thoron stood at the center platform. The challenge has been made and accepted. The rules are simple. Each commander will control a virtual fleet. The objective is to capture the opponent's home system. The simulation is based on real physics and tactical principles. Anything that would work in a real battle will work here. The contest begins when both commanders enter their neural interfaces. Minho looked across the arena at Vexar. The Krell prince was smiling confidently. He had every reason to be confident. He had studied war his entire life. This was what he was born to do. Minho climbed into his neural interface pod. It was a chair surrounded by holographic displays and controls. Once activated, his mind would connect to the simulation, allowing him to command ships as if he were really there. Liara's voice came through a private channel. Remember what I said. Do not try to be him. Be yourself. I will, Minho said. I promise. The neural interface activated. Suddenly, Minho was not in the arena anymore. He was in space, surrounded by his fleet. 100 ships of various sizes, cruisers, destroyers, fighters, each with their own capabilities and weaknesses. Across the simulated galaxy, Vexar had an identical fleet. The objective was simple: destroy or bypass the enemy fleet and capture their home system. First one to plant their flag on the enemy's capital planet won. A timer appeared. 30 seconds until start. Minho took a deep breath and began giving orders. His opening moves were not aggressive. He divided his fleet into small groups and sent them in different directions. Some toward Vexar's territory, some away from it. Some that seemed to be heading nowhere useful. The timer hit 0. The contest began. Vexar's opening was textbook perfect. He consolidated his fleet into 3 main groups, one massive hammer force in the center, with 2 smaller groups on the flanks. It was the classic Krell strategy. Find the enemy's main fleet and crush it. But Minho's fleet was not in one place. It was scattered across the map in groups of 5 to 10 ships. Vexar's scouts found these small groups easily, but there was no main fleet to find. In the arena, the tactical experts were confused. What is the human doing? He has divided his forces. This makes no strategic sense. Admiral Yuna watched the displays with a sinking feeling. He said he was going to do something different. I did not think he meant this different. Vexar saw the scattered human ships and smiled. This was going to be easier than he thought. The human had made the most basic mistake in warfare. Never divide your forces against a concentrated enemy. He sent his fleet forward, crushing the small human groups one by one. Each engagement was a massacre. 5 human ships against 30 Krell ships could only end one way. After the first hour, Minho had lost 40 ships. Vexar had lost 5. The human is being destroyed, someone in the crowd said. This is painful to watch, another agreed. But Layara was watching the map carefully. The small human groups were not fighting back very hard. They would engage briefly, then retreat, leading the Krell ships on chases that took them deeper into human territory. He is doing something, she whispered. I do not know what, but he has a plan. By the second hour, Minho was down to 60 ships, but something strange was happening. Vexar's massive fleet was spread out across a huge area, chasing the scattered human groups. The Krell ships were still winning every engagement, but they were no longer concentrated in one overwhelming force. Minho had been watching the pattern carefully. Krell tactics were aggressive and decisive. Vexar always went for the killing blow, always committed fully to destroying each target, which meant he was predictable. Minho gave new orders. 10 of his remaining ships, loaded with the slowest weapons in the simulation, moved toward a position that looked like they were trying to defend a supply depot. It was obvious bait. Any decent commander would ignore it. But it was near the route to Minho's home system. And Vexar, following Krell doctrine, believed in destroying every enemy asset, especially ones that looked like they were defending something important. Vexar took the bait. He sent 20 ships to destroy the human defenders. Those 20 Krell ships flew right into the trap Minho had been preparing for 2 hours. While the Krell had been chasing scattered groups, Minho had been slowly, quietly, destroying his own supply infrastructure in that sector, making it look like battle damage instead of deliberate sabotage. When Vexar's ships arrived, they were far from their own supply lines, and the depot they thought they would capture had been destroyed by Minho hours ago. The Krell ships ran out of fuel in the middle of empty space. 20 ships dead in the water, unable to move or fight. In the arena, the crowd gasped. Did he just sacrifice his own infrastructure? That makes no sense. Without supplies, the human ships in that area cannot operate either. Wait, Admiral Yuna said, studying the map more carefully. "Those human ships in that sector. They are all light fighters. They have enough fuel to get back to human space on their own. But the heavy Krell cruisers need supply stations. He deliberately created a dead zone that traps heavy ships but allows light ones to escape." Vexar stared at his disabled ships in disbelief. No one destroyed their own infrastructure. It was one of the most basic rules of warfare. You protected your supply lines because you needed them to survive. But the human had just broken that rule, and in doing so, had trapped a significant portion of the Krell fleet. The simulation was not over. Vexar still had more ships than Minho, but now he had to be cautious. If the human was willing to destroy his own assets to create traps, what else might he do? Vexar began pulling his forces back, consolidating them into a more defensive formation. He would not fall for any more tricks, which was exactly what Minho wanted. While Vexar was focused on reorganizing his fleet, Minho sent 15 of his fastest ships on a direct run toward the Krell home system. Not with an invasion force, just a small, fast strike team. Vexar saw them coming and smiled. Finally, the human was doing something predictable. He sent 30 ships to intercept the human strike team. It would be a slaughter. But the human ships were not trying to fight. They were running, leading the Krell ships away from the main battle area. And while Vexar's attention was on this chase, Minho moved his remaining forces toward a different target. Not the Krell home system. That was too obvious, too well defended. Instead, Minho attacked something that no military academy would consider a primary target. The Krell communication relay stations. Small, lightly defended installations that allowed Vexar to coordinate his scattered fleet. One by one, Minho destroyed them, not with overwhelming force, just small, precise strikes that took out the relay equipment and moved on before reinforcements could arrive. Vexar suddenly found his fleet becoming uncoordinated. Orders were delayed. Ships could not communicate effectively. The perfect Krell formations began to break down. In the arena, military experts were arguing loudly. This is not how warfare works. You do not target communications first. You target the enemy fleet. The human is ignoring every rule of proper strategy. And yet he is still in the game, Liara said quietly. Against an opponent who should have destroyed him in the first hour. By the fourth hour, the situation had changed dramatically. Vexar still had more ships, but they were disorganized and scattered. Minho had fewer ships, but they were mobile and coordinated. And then Minho made his final, insane move. He took 20 of his remaining 30 ships and flew them directly at the Krell home system. Not to capture it, to threaten it, to force Vexar to pull back his scattered forces to defend his home. Vexar had no choice. He could not leave his home system undefended. He pulled back every ship he had, racing to intercept the human attack. But while Vexar was consolidating his defense, Minho's other 10 ships, the ones everyone had forgotten about, made a quiet run toward the Krell home system from a completely different direction. Vexar realized the trick too late. The 20 ships he was facing were a distraction. They were not even trying to win. They were just keeping him busy while the real attack came from another angle. The 10 human ships broke through the light defenses on the far side of the Krell system. They flew past the orbital platforms, past the defensive satellites, and landed troops on the capital planet. The simulation ended. Victory to Commander Minho of Earth. The arena was silent. Completely silent. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. Prince Vexar sat in his neural pod, staring at the defeat screen. He had been outplayed, not through superior tactics or better strategy, but through complete chaos. The human had broken every rule, ignored every doctrine, and somehow won. Emperor Thorin stood up slowly. The contest is complete. Commander Minho is victorious. The crowd erupted, some in celebration, some in outrage. Some in simple shock, Minho climbed out of his pod on shaking legs. He had done it. Somehow, impossibly, he had done it. Liara ran to him, throwing her arms around him in a very un-princess-like display. "You did it! I knew you could do it!" "I cheated," Minho said, still dazed. "I mean, not really cheated, but I ignored every rule of proper warfare." "That is why you won," Liara said, laughing and crying at the same time. "You thought like a human instead of trying to think like them." Vexar walked across the arena toward them. The crowd fell silent, wondering what would happen. Would the Krell Prince refuse to accept the result? Would he demand a rematch? But Vexar surprised everyone. He stopped in front of Minho and studied him for a long moment. "I do not understand how you did that," Vexar said finally. "Your strategy made no sense. You sacrificed assets. You ignored primary targets. You did everything wrong." "I know," Minho said, "and yet you won." Vexar shook his head. "I have studied warfare for my entire life. I have read every tactical manual, studied every famous battle. I knew every possible move you could make, except the ones you actually made." "I am sorry," Minho started. "Do not apologize." Vexar's expression changed to something almost like respect. "I understand now why the princess chose you. You see the galaxy differently than we do. Your people do not have thousands of years of doctrine and tradition, so you are free to think in ways we cannot." He turned to Liara. "Your Highness, I accept your choice, and I apologize for doubting it. This human has earned his place at your side." With that, Vexar bowed and left the arena. The crowd was still processing what had happened. A human from a species barely a century in space had defeated one of the Krell Dominion's finest commanders. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. 3 months after the contest, representatives from dozens of species gathered at the Valthene capital for the wedding. But this was not a normal royal wedding. This was something new. Emperor Thoran had tried to plan a traditional Valthene ceremony, elaborate rituals that would take 3 days, formal speeches from every major species, a display of imperial power and ancient tradition. Liara and Minho had other ideas. "Father, no one wants to sit through 3 days of ceremony," Liara said firmly. "Half the galaxy thinks this union is strange already. Let us show them something different." "This is a royal wedding," Thoran protested. "There are expectations, traditions that must be honored." "Then we will honor some traditions and create new ones," Minho suggested. "Make it a blend of Valthene and human customs. Show the galaxy that 2 different cultures can come together and create something beautiful." Thoran looked at them both and sighed. "You two are going to change everything, are you not?" "We are going to try," Liara said, smiling. The ceremony was scheduled for 1 day instead of 3. It would combine Valthene rituals with human traditions, and instead of being held in the formal throne room, it would take place in the palace gardens, under the open sky. "More chaos," Council Leader Orath muttered, "but I suppose we should get used to it." The day before the wedding, Earth's delegation arrived. Minho's family stepped off the transport ship looking completely overwhelmed. His mother stared at the Crystal Palace with wide eyes. His father kept checking his data pad like he needed to confirm this was real. His brother Hyun just kept saying, "This is insane. This is completely insane." Minho met them at the landing bay, and his mother immediately pulled him into a hug. "Are you okay? Are they treating you well? We have been so worried." "I am fine, Mother. Better than fine." His father looked around at the Valthene guards, the alien dignitaries, the impossible architecture. "Son, you were supposed to deliver a message. How did you end up marrying a princess?" "It is a long story," Minho said, laughing. "We have time," Hyun said. because we are going to need a very detailed explanation. That evening, Minho brought his family to meet Liara. She had been nervous about this meeting all week. These were the people who raised Minho. If they did not accept her, it would break his heart. She greeted them formally, with a traditional Valthine bow. "It is an honor to meet you. Minho has told me so much about you." Minho's mother studied Liara for a long moment. Then she smiled. "You love him?" Liara blinked in surprise. Yes, very much." "And he loves you?" "I hope so." "I do," Minho said quickly. "Very much." Minho's mother nodded. "Then that is all that matters. Welcome to the family, Your Highness. Please, call me Liara." They spent hours talking. Liara wanted to know everything about Minho's childhood. His mother told embarrassing stories. His father explained how Minho had always been stubborn, even as a child. Hyun shared memories of growing up together, and Liara listened to all of it, delighted. This was what she had wanted, not a political alliance, not a strategic marriage, but a real connection to another person and the life they came from. "Your Highness," Hyun said carefully, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why my brother? I mean, I love him, but he is not special. He is not the smartest or the strongest or the most important human. So why him?" Liara looked at Minho, and her expression was soft. "Because when I asked him a question in a room full of people who wanted to use me, he gave me an honest answer. Because he treats me like a person instead of a princess. Because he thinks differently than anyone I have ever met. And because when I am with him, I feel like I can be myself instead of what everyone expects me to be." Minho's mother reached over and squeezed Liara's hand. "Then he is lucky to have found you." "I think I am the lucky one," Liara said. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather. The gardens were transformed into something magical. Valthine flowers from a dozen worlds bloomed in every color. Human decorations mixed with alien designs. Musicians from both cultures prepared to play together, even though their instruments and styles were completely different. Guests began arriving early. Species that had never attended a human event before came to witness this historic union. Some came out of genuine happiness. Others came out of curiosity. A few came because they still did not believe it was real. Prince Vexar arrived with a delegation from the Krell Dominion. He approached Minho before the ceremony. "Commander, I brought you a gift." He handed Minho a small data crystal. "This contains every tactical manual from the Krell Military Academy. Every strategy, every formation, every lesson learned over 10,000 years of warfare." Minho was surprised. "Why would you give me this?" "Because you beat me without them. I want to see what you could do with them." Vexar smiled slightly. "Also, I am hoping for a rematch someday. A friendly one." "I would like that," Minho said, and meant it. The ceremony began at sunset, when 3 suns painted the sky in shades of gold and purple. Liara walked down the garden path wearing robes that combined Valthine silk with human lace. She looked beautiful and nervous, and completely happy. Minho waited for her wearing formal earth attire with Valthine symbols woven into the fabric. When he saw her approaching, his breath caught. Emperor Thoron performed the Valthine portion of the ceremony. He spoke of ancient traditions, of honor and duty, of the responsibilities they would share. Then a human minister performed a shorter, simpler ceremony that spoke of love and partnership and building a life together. When it came time for the vows, they had written their own. Liara spoke first. "Minho, 15 cycles ago I decided I would rather be alone than settle for something false. I refused every match, every alliance, every strategic partnership, because none of them felt real. And then you walked into my life by accident, looking confused and uncertain, and I felt something I had been waiting for. Not perfection. Not some ideal partner from stories, but someone genuine, someone who saw me. I promise to spend the rest of my life seeing you the same way, honestly, completely, as you are. Minho's voice was steady despite his emotion. Liara, I came here to deliver a simple message and go home. Instead, I found something I did not know I was looking for. A person who challenged me to be better, who valued things I thought were weaknesses, who taught me that being different was not something to apologize for. You changed my life in the space of a heartbeat, and I promise to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it. There was a human tradition Liara had learned about and insisted on including. Minho took out a simple ring, made of gold from Earth, and slid it onto her finger. It was small and plain compared to the jewels Valthene royalty usually wore. Liara looked at it and smiled. It is perfect. They sealed the union with a kiss, and the crowd erupted in applause. Beings from a dozen species celebrated together, proving that maybe, just maybe, the galaxy could be smaller than everyone thought. The reception lasted late into the night. Music played, mixing human rhythms with Valthene harmonies in ways no one had heard before. Food from both worlds was served. Cultures that rarely interacted found themselves sharing stories and laughter. Admiral Yuna found Minho during a quiet moment. I have news from Earth. The military academy wants to interview you about your tactics in the contest. They are calling it the most innovative strategic thinking they have seen in decades. Minho laughed. I just made it up as I went along. That is what makes it innovative. You were not constrained by doctrine or tradition. You just solved problems in the moment. She paused. Earth is proud of you, Commander. You showed the galaxy that humanity deserves its place among the stars. I just wanted to win so I could marry Liara. That too, Yuna said, smiling. But you proved something bigger. That being new to the galaxy is not a weakness. That fresh perspectives have value. Half the species here are reconsidering how they train their commanders because of what you did. Later, Liara and Minho escaped the reception for a few minutes of peace. They stood on a balcony overlooking the gardens, watching the celebration below. Do you think we can make this work? Liara asked quietly. Our peoples are so different. That is why it will work, Minho said. We do not have to be the same. We just have to respect what makes each other different. Your people have wisdom and experience. Mine have creativity and adaptability. Together, we might actually accomplish something amazing. Like what? I do not know yet. But I have some ideas. Minho pulled out a data pad. I have been talking with some Earth scientists. They want to collaborate with Valthene researchers on new propulsion technology, combining your ancient knowledge with our experimental approach. Joint research projects, Liara said thoughtfully. That could work. What else? Cultural exchange programs. Send young Valthene to Earth to learn about human art and music and philosophy. Send young humans here to learn from your history and traditions. Liara's eyes lit up. We could create something new. Not Valthene, not human, but something that takes the best from both cultures. Exactly. They spent an hour discussing ideas, possibilities, dreams for what their union could mean beyond just the two of them. A bridge between old and new, ancient and modern, tradition and innovation. My father was right, Liara said eventually. We are going to change everything. Is that bad? No. She leaned against him. I think it is exactly what the galaxy needs. The celebration continued below them. Human and Valthene, young species and old, all mixing together in ways that would have been unthinkable a year ago. And at the center of it all, a princess who had refused to settle and a human who had stumbled into destiny by accident. 6 months later, the first joint Valthene Human Research Station opened. Scientists from both worlds worked together, combining ancient Valthene knowledge with human innovation. The results were remarkable. New technologies, new discoveries, new ways of thinking about old problems. Other species began to take notice. If the ancient Valthene were willing to learn from humans, maybe there was value in these young species after all. Slowly, the galaxy began to open up. It was not easy. There were misunderstandings, conflicts, moments when the cultural differences seemed too large to bridge. But Liara and Minho worked through them together, proving that different did not mean incompatible. They traveled to Earth, and Liara walked the streets of Seoul, amazed by the energy and chaos of human cities. She tasted foods that made her cry with their intensity. She listened to music that was only 3 minutes long but could change your entire mood. She met people from 100 different cultures on one small planet, all somehow living together despite their differences. "This is what I sensed in you," she told Minho. "This beautiful chaos, this refusal to accept that anything is impossible, this stubborn insistence on growing and changing and adapting. My people spent millions of years perfecting what we are. Yours spent thousands of years becoming something new every generation. That is extraordinary." Minho brought her to meet more of his family, his grandmother who was 90 years old and cried when she met an actual alien princess, his childhood friends, who teased him mercilessly for marrying someone so far above his station, his old teacher who said she always knew he would do something remarkable. And Liara loved all of it, the messiness and warmth and genuine emotion of human relationships, so different from the formal, careful interactions of Valthene court life. They returned to the Valthene Empire changed. They brought ideas back with them, new ways of thinking. And slowly, the ancient empire began to evolve. Years later, historians would point to this union as the moment everything changed, the moment when the galaxy stopped seeing humanity as primitive newcomers and started seeing them as valuable partners, the moment when old and new came together and created something neither could have built alone. But for Liara and Minho, it was simpler than that. It was the story of two people from impossible different worlds who looked at each other and saw not what they were supposed to see, but what was actually there: a connection, a possibility, a future worth fighting for. And when people asked Liara why she chose a human after refusing so many others, she always gave the same answer. "Because when everyone else was trying to impress me, he just told me the truth. And sometimes that is the most powerful thing in the galaxy." Minho would smile when she said that, remembering the day he stood in a throne room, confused and scared, and gave an honest answer to a question he did not understand. Yes. One word that changed 2 lives, 2 worlds, and eventually, the entire galaxy. Because sometimes the most important moments are the ones we never plan for. Sometimes the greatest unions come from the most unlikely places, and sometimes the answer we have been searching for comes from someone we never expected to meet. The Valthene princess refused every suitor for 15 years, and then a human walked in, and she whispered, "Yes." It was the beginning of everything.